A reminder that President Cyril Ramaphosa will address the nation this Sunday night at 7 p.m. on developments arising from statements made by KwaZulu-Natal Police Commissioner Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkwanazi. Mkwanazi made corruption allegations against senior police officials and the Minister of Police, Senzo Mchunu. In a statement released by the Presidency spokesperson, Vincent Magwenya says that Ramaphosa has been seized with the matter through consultations and will take the nation into his confidence this weekend. Let's now discuss this with our panel discussion as we'll look at this particular issue and see exactly what is going on. We do have a senior training coordinator on terrorism at the Institute for Security Studies, Willem Els, political analyst, Prof Sipho Seepe, and security analyst, MD Mashaile. Very good evening to you and thank you so much for your time. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Mashaile. When you hear that the president is going to be addressing the nation on Sunday, what does he say?
One, it's the right thing, the right step, because some of the people involved report to him directly. Two, I am sure the president is going to say to us, I will look at the matter and I am going to invite a retired judge or retired judges or some lawyers so that they can give a hearing to all the sides that are involved, now going into the investigations mode, and the recommendations will come from that team that would have been assembled. I am not expecting the president himself to be sitting through and listening to all of those things. So those that would be identified and would be invited would obviously give the president some recommendations on the steps to take. But this is not very nice. This is a threat to national security. In fact, this is an existential threat to a number of things. Number one being national security and all other programs that come after your national security.
Willem, when you look at the fact that there have been calls for this investigation to take place, with Parliament now saying that the three committees are going to then be looking at this and then making some considerations to the National Assembly on how do they move forward from this, what becomes the next step from all of this?
Yeah, thank you. Good evening to you. And in the first place, if you look at these recommendations, of course, they asked for a debate, but it seems that this is just another way where they're trying to buy time because it will give them about 2 weeks now for these committees to sit. And the problem that you run the risk that some of these people that are being implicated in this report might be the very people that are sitting on these committees. So that is a bit of a conflict of interest that there might be, but of course the opposition parties asked for a public debate, and now they said that they will have it after 2 weeks. And also I agree with Andy. The president he almost dragged his feet to deal with a situation or this situation of this magnitude. This is very different from many of the previous ones that have been dealt with by the ruling party. And if they're going to deal with that in a similar fashion as they dealt with the others, like for instance with the state capture and the Zondo Commission, and then the very selective in the evidence, but also very selective in or applying or adhering to any of the recommendations. So what we need now, we need swift justice. We need swift action from Parliament's side, from the President's side, because on the grassroots levels, I think the public and the man in the street is tired of these promises, and we need action.
Prof, how much of this should also be looked at through the lens of politics?
Well, it's very difficult at the moment for the president, and he has to be very careful. And as you know, he is a process person, but the process is deliberate because it buys him time to ensure that whatever investigation does not link it to himself and to others. Remember what Mkhwanazi says. He says that these allegations that are grave involve politicians. It involves members of the prosecution. It involves senior police. It also involves members of the judiciary. So when you look at how the Phala matter was handled, initially the president told us that the money that was found in his farm were proceeds of sale, that he was in the business of selling. And later, the story started changing. So what you saw is the president subjecting that process to what you call a process, which ultimately led to him being exonerated. Now imagine what Nhlanhla Mkwanazi has actually said. And as the film indicates, you also have a possibility where people who are going to look at this, who are in these committees, may also be implicated. So this is not going to bring comfort to the people of South Africa. And even then, people have to check which judges are going to be put there, because for as long as you have CR17, we don't know who may have received money and who may have given the president money. So it is possible that he'll take his time and make sure that first he does not throw his own comrades under the bus. Remember, it was Mchunu, the minister, who said the Pala report is classified. It will not be made public. And we have always claimed, and the president has always talked about the importance of transparency. But when it comes to matters that involve him, you don't find transparency. So this notion of a process, but what we know now, as a matter of fact, is that you have a crisis of leadership within the SAPS. But not only that, when it is suggested that these are the kingpins of drugs are working with these people, then you have a problem with public trust. The question is, who guards the guardians? Yeah. So what it will lead to a sense of lawlessness. So I don't think South Africans, what you see now, you're going to see three things happening. You're going to see people going into the streets, and they're going to be calling all these politicians who are saying, calm down, to say you are actually thieves. They are going to go to the courts. They're going to go to parliament. So every side is now open for engagement. Now this is called the real side and struggle. And the question is, will the president be man enough to say, if we're going to come up with a commission of inquiry, those men and women who may be chosen are themselves not should be above suspicion. Right. But my sense is that for as long as you have certain things that are classified that involve the president, you can rest assured that the president is not going to make sure that he close ranks.
Yeah, Prof, and if I bring in Andy here, when you look at the task team, there are people who are questioning the work of the task team. There are people who are saying that these allegations by the Provincial Commissioner of KwaZulu-Natal, you need to treat them with some kind of caution, because there might be more to this than meets the eye, but also at the same time, you can't just believe him all willy-nilly. What do you say to that in the work of this political task team?
For the fact that the Provincial Commissioner, Mkhwanazi, says there are judges, there are prosecutors, there are businessmen, and there are rogue policemen involved, and he didn't mention the names, and he specifically said those that he has mentioned are in Gauteng. And it means the second phase of his unpacking would then be informed by sitting with that committee or that group of people or those who would be investigating, unpacking the names of those people who are there. I am sure he is cautious from a strategy point of view. I am a strategist. From a strategy point of view, I will jab. Just throw one jab so that I can see your responses and your reflexes, which is what he has done. More is coming. Who do you think
this jab is directed at?
Pardon?
Who do you think should be the recipient of this jab? Are the people that he mentioned the recipients, or is there somebody that he's targeting that we don't know?
Obviously, you and I can tell, and Brasipo and Willem, they can tell. He's punched the minister in the face by bringing those communications, text messages between the minister and many other people. There was a jab in the face of the minister. And he is expecting the minister to respond in a certain way, which is why, from an analysis point of view, which is why, in a strategy point of view, he withheld some of those names, so that if you say, no, I don't know ABCDFG, then he'll be giving out the names of those individuals.
Willem, the political killings task team itself has come under scrutiny by some people over time who have been asking, is this even a task team that is doing what it is supposed to do? And yesterday, with that briefing by the National Police Commissioner, non-committal on quite a number of issues, even saying that my signature has not even been attached to a letter that says it must be closed. What are you reading from all of that, and what work has this task team done in your view?
Yeah, you know, it's a very difficult situation because on the one hand, you sit with your police procedures, you sit with for instance, any crime being committed by any policeman or woman, especially using firearms and all the other more serious stuff, you know, that's why we've got IPID, and IPID will have to and has to investigate all of that. That's your counterbalance when it comes to policemen. Whenever you are combining or setting up a task team like this, you will get people who go rogue. You will have people that overstep the line, and that is how it should be. The way it is being managed is how you go. The outcome is going to be determined. So, of course, if there were people that overstepped, then that should go to IPID, and IPID should come with an investigation on that, and also with the outcome of the investigation. So, just to close down the whole unit that has been doing quite a great job. If you look at the statistics that were actually read and brought to us by General Mkwanazi on Sunday, you know, if you look at your crime detection rate, your solvency rate in South Africa for all crimes, about 12.5%, and if you look at the cases that he mentioned, it's more than 50%. So the task team must have done something right. We also want them to adhere to all your human rights and stay within the auspices of the law. So that is why it is important how you manage it. And you know, you asked also about General Mkwanazi, General Fanima Samola, how he handled it. Of course, he was quiet up to some stage. He released a statement where he said that he was informed that there was going to be a press conference, but it will be on firearms, etc., etc. So I think at the moment, I don't think there's a lot of strategy from the police side and from the government side in terms of how they're going to solve it in the intermediate in the immediate sort of time frame. They are looking long frame, but I'm just afraid that time is not on their side.
Yeah, gentlemen, let's pause for a second. We do have a statement that has just come in from the Judiciary on this particular matter. Tembegile?
And this is what we're getting from the Office of the Chief Justice, in fact, where the statement says, pardon me, the Judiciary has noted with serious concern the recent remarks made by Lieutenant General Nhlanhla Mkwanazi of the South African Police Service during the briefing that he held on Sunday. The statement goes on to say that such claims made without substantiation are extremely damaging to public confidence in the independence and integrity of our courts, a fundamental pillar of our constitutional democracy. The statement says that Mkhwanazi had alleged that there was collusion between, among others, members of the judiciary and criminals. Now, it says in this regard, the acting Secretary General of the Office of the Chief Justice has now formally asked the Police Commissioner in KZN to basically furnish evidence to support the allegations and to lodge formal complaints where warranted with the Judicial Service Commission and or the Magistrates Commission. So the Judiciary this evening in fact, it's not inviting, but they've officially communicated to the Police Commissioner in KZN, Nhlanhla Mkwanazi, that they would like to be furnished with details of this alleged collusion involving members of the judiciary, i.e. judges, in any corruption or collusion with criminal elements, because they say ultimately it is their job to make sure the judiciary is above such things when you consider the scale of those allegations of wrongdoing.
And of course, as we continue then with this discussion, Prof, I'm going to take your reaction. I hope you did hear much of what that statement had to say.
Yeah, obviously, the Chief Justice has to take that position. She has to protect her institution. Otherwise, the courts will not be trusted. But having said that, it does require that Mkhwanazi, there is a platform in which he'll be able to put that. Remember what we're talking about here is whistleblowing. So first, there must be a protection of Mkhwanazi, which the people on the ground are now concerned. I mean, if you look at the movement that you find in a number of provinces saying hands off Mkhwanazi. So that's the first thing, that he needs to be safeguarded. Then second thing, you would expect that even the police themselves will make the same claim to say, well, you make this, where's the proof? This is why you need an independent. It cannot be, remember, when these things are done, they are done, these are shadowy processes. These are done in the dark corners. So it will not be a simple, straightforward thing that, no, I'm going to mention this judge. He will have to make sure that there is a link, that there's a web of communication. And I should also mention that one of the former constitutional court judge, Cameron himself, he says, when people are arrested and they're put there as drug kingpins, says actually you're putting wrong people there. The real kingpins are in the police. So if you have somebody like Cameron as a judge, a former constitutional court judge saying there is a problem, then we must address it. So, but I don't think you can fault the Chief Justice for wanting to defend the integrity of the judiciary. That is her responsibility. Yeah. But at the same time, she should not stop the process of saying, let this be done in a manner that is systematic, because this is a web.
All right.
It is not something that is straightforward. That's why the public has not seen it.
Now, when Mr. Mashaile, when we look at the issue of drug cartels, you and I have spoken about this, that in some of the cases you find that you're not even hitting the target. You actually are just going for the small man on the street, the runners, and all of that. When you listen to that press briefing, did you actually resonate with some of the allegations that are being made there as somebody who's been watching that particular space closely over time?
Yes, ma'am. My spirit and my mind and my understanding wrapped itself around that allegation. And remember, KZN has been used by the Central Americas, the Mexicos, the Brazils, to drop off contraband, your drugs off the coast, using the harbor there. And in that same space, you're finding both you and I learning about police officers who traveled in 2016, who traveled from Gauteng in Mack cars to go and collect 600 kilograms of drugs, coming into Gauteng and into other parts of SADC. So when he spoke about it, having had spent time with you on that report, the powder storm that was released by the Global Initiative Against Transnational Organized Crime, it shook me and shocked me to the core of my stomach, because I could tell that internationally this has been well known, and here's one person who is responsible for safeguarding the borders and safeguarding the province where the drug dealers internationally happen to play on in terms of drug distribution.
So Willem, when you then look at all of this and the calls for the probe now, because South Africans, for example, would say, if you speak about a commission of inquiry, alarm bells go off not only on the budget, but the amount of time that it sometimes does take. And then sometimes some of the, investigations and recommendations are not really acted upon. How quickly do they need to wrap this up, and will they be able to?
I think you struck a nerve there, and that is exactly the sentiment amongst the people that we picked up, is that we don't need a protracted and a prolonged another investigation that will continue until the people lost interest and other things happen, and that then the focus will hopefully move away from this investigation. So what we typically would like to see is, if we can do that within 30 days, get to the preliminary findings, and then also you make your recommendations, and that recommendations that should then guide the president in order for immediate steps to take. He can then, if he wish to, he can, and it needs to expand and to prolong the investigation. They can add some more beef to it, and they can go deeper into it. But what we need now is action as soon as possible, because South Africa deserves it, and also, South Africa cannot afford another long investigation and protracted, because the trust of the public is currently at low time levels. So they need, from a government's perspective, need to act swiftly. They need to have open, and they need to have in a matter of great urgency, so, in order to restore that trust of the public.
Prof, in about 30 seconds, we're running out of time. How then does the ANC process all of this?
Well, the ANC's position has always been close ranks. Remember, if you look at Phala, there was a closing of ranks. And coming to the judiciary, they need to be consistent. Whenever we deal with apartheid crimes, the judiciary will tell us that there should be transparency. And on matters that had to do with the president, the judiciary comes up with a different theme. Until we deal with the CR17 funding, then it will remove us from suspecting that some people have been bought. Remember, Mkhwanazi told us that once people give you money, there'll be payback time. So we hope that this is not payback time. We saw with Phala, where the money that came into this country was not declared, at least SARS told us that. Then you ask, how did you have so many millions? Are these the rogue police who made sure that this is not known? Right. So what you have here is that in the same way that the ANC closed ranks to protect the president, they expect the president to do the same. And this is why he will not easily fire Mchunu, who had made sure that the report becomes classified when it comes to Phala. So that is the problem. That's why we need a thorough investigation by people that society will say, this we trust, not the judges who have also a political agenda, as we have seen some behave in a manner that left people. When people protest, let me tell you, when somebody is found guilty, the people in this country accept it. But when they think something is politically motivated, then you have a problem. And in the same way that we should not end up having a situation where the police are weaponized, where the judiciary was weaponized, where the prosecution is weaponized. All right,
let me thank you all for your time this evening. And let's see what the president says on Sunday as the way forward when it comes to dealing with these damning allegations. That was a senior training coordinator on terrorism at the Institute for Security Studies, Willem Els, political analyst, Prof Sipho Seepe. And in studio, we had a security analyst with us, ND Mashaile.